Hey everyone, this is Jen. You're watching BPD Woman. On this channel, you will learn how to more effectively handle and manage your BPD behaviors and emotions. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I am just a person that was diagnosed with BPD over 20 years ago. And while I am not a doctor, I have something very important that those folks do not experience in living with it. I've done DBT multiple rounds. I've read books, studies. I've lived, breathed, and sweated. You get the idea. I'm committed. Today I want to talk to you about why and how your cell phone has made your BPD harder and also easier. But I'm going to focus a little bit on the harder first. So when I was diagnosed, it was early 2000s, like 2001. And, there were cell phones around. I mean, cell phones have been around since the 80s, but smartphones have not been around until, gosh, I don't know, 2005, 6, something in there. So, you had cell phones, but, it had the big old battery and you could call. Texting wasn't even really a thing yet. So, in some ways, at the time of my diagnosis, things were a little bit easier, simpler. Obviously, now I have a phone, and you get those phone reports like your average phone use has been 18 hours a day this week, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's like at one point I didn't even have a phone. What did I do then? And so that was an interesting question. Like, okay, well, when I didn't have a phone, where else was those 18 hours going to? Well, this could parlay into a lot of different topics, but the answer to that is face-to-face interface is what the answer is. You actually had to go talk to people face-to-face. It was harder to hurt someone's feelings because you just couldn't be a keyboard commando under, an anonymous handle on YouTube and just write some shit. So it made things a bit easier. And how it made it easier was that even though you had the phone, right? Like, you couldn't block someone immediately. That wasn't a feature that happened until like 2010 or something. And even then you had to like go to a website and go to AT&T.com and like put in a number and block it and wait a day. I mean, so that wasn't even a thing yet. You couldn't use multiple different, phone numbers. Like now you can use apps like, Google Voice or Burner, and, you can create all kinds of different phone numbers. You couldn't do that. You couldn't bother someone. Bother's the wrong word, but you couldn't incessantly be in contact with someone, right? So, and you didn't know what they were doing, right? There wasn't Facebook until 2006 or something or whatever it was, and even then, most people didn't have an iPhone. Like you'd have to go, on the internet and get on your computer, see what people were up to. So, it could really help slow down the dysregulation of being able to be in contact with somebody all the time, going to their profiles, checking out what they're doing. Are they online? Are they not online? Did they post something? Did they like my post? Why haven't I heard from their post? So it really, and again, I just did a video about why social media is dangerous, and that kind of parlays into this. They're connected. So, back then, it was easier, right? You couldn't block someone. You'd have to wait for stuff to calm down. You couldn't FaceTime them. You'd have to go and you'd have to speak with them in person, right? And obviously speaking in person gives you so many different things. I mean, even now, like, sure, you could do a Zoom call, you could watch this video, you could FaceTime with someone, but you lose a lot in the process when you're not face-to-face with someone. They're absolutely wonderful tools, and it's so great to have, for sure. There's so many good things about having those tools available to us. But, when you're face-to-face with someone, what do they say? 98% of communication is body language, and tone and inference and where their eyes are and what their body language is doing. So, I mean, even now, right? Like, when I text with people, constantly, I'm like, you can almost be triggered like daily, especially if you get a lot of texts. I mean, I'm on my phone all the time for work. That's how people communicate with me. And I'm like, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed. Right. And so you could very easily be triggered by not only all of the incoming information coming at you all of the time, but also it's so much easier now to instantly react, right? You didn't have that before cell phones, right? You'd have to get on the phone and talk to someone, right? Or you'd have to go over to their house. I mean, when I was little, I had to go over to my friend's house on my bike, knock on the door. Hi, can Ellen come out to play? Right? Oh, yeah, Ellen can come out to play. Now it's like, hey, let me text you. Let's see if we can get together. And it really, if you have a personality disorder where you need a lot of things filled in the blank for you, like inference, what they mean, or being validated, or validating them, or, if you're unsure of their tone or their message, a lot of that can be resolved in person. So your phone has made your BPD worse because there's just so many more opportunities to quickly react, quickly give into your emotions. There's so many types of stimulus coming at you that you can be more easily dysregulated on a more consistent basis. I mean, it's tough. It's really tough. And again, that's why I'm not on social media. I have a hard enough time, composing myself and keeping it together sometimes, just with all of the bombardment of text. And here's another thing, now with text, it's like you see it right away. And if you have your read receipts on, or if someone's been online, you're like, well, I know they read my message. I mean, like that happened to me today. Like somebody read my message when I sent a message like at 8, and I know they read it at 10, and now here we're going on whatever, 4 p.m. They haven't replied. So I'm like, well, fuck you. But back in the day, you might call them, right? Or you'd have to leave a message on their answering machine at home, and you'd have to wait for them to get back to you. There was a mystery, like, oh, you told yourself a different narrative, right? You were like, oh, well, they're out shopping, maybe they're at a movie, they haven't got the message, maybe their tape is full at home. Now you're like, everybody has access to their phone 24/7, so there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be answering my text. And I remind myself now, like, again, you don't know what's always going on. You have to sit with uncomfortability. You have to tell yourself, I do not know what's going on. I do not know the facts of this case right now. I'm not sure why they're not texting me. The only information I have right now is they're not texting me. And now, there's also a nice feature now on iPhone with iMessages where you can, like, after you've read something, you can mark it as unread, kind of like an email. So, and then I can pin it. I'll pin it up at the top, and I'll get back to it when I'm ready to, which is fine. Some people are going to expect you to text back right away. I don't always do that. If it's urgent and time sensitive, sure. If I need to be focused on something else, then yeah. I'll wait to reply. I mean, that is a skill that I've learned to develop, waiting it out, replying when I'm calm, replying when I'm not tired, replying when I'm focused, right? You don't want to dysregulate yourself further by, God, I just saw my hair, Jesus. I make these videos and I'm like, you look good. And then I'm like, oh my God, you need to put on makeup. I really don't give a fuck, honestly, guys. I think of these things and I just put this content out there. Anyway, so I hope this has been helpful. And listen, there's so many great things about cell phones as well. For instance, you want to clear the air, you can do that pretty quickly. You can call someone, you can very quickly get in contact with a whole bunch of people at once, instead of me driving to my bike to Ellen's house to knock on the door. Now I can send a group text, and now I've biked to 5 different doors. Hey, how are you? You could throw. Anyway, hope this information's been helpful. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, subscribe, and please share your wisdom and your experience below. Bye-bye.